好，大家好，我是当哥，今天再次跟大家一起学习 AWS APN。好，我们现在开始吧。
In Module 5, we will discuss the following topics: business drivers for cloud adoption, understanding C-level cloud adoption concerns, developing an understanding of the migration process, identifying initial workloads for migration. What drives businesses to move their on-premises IT workloads to the cloud? The top business drivers of migration to the cloud include cost, the need for increased agility, a significant business impacting event, such as new regulations, an impending hardware refresh cycle, or an expiring lease on a data center, the need for freedom to experiment, and requirements for faster development. Overall, by moving to the cloud, customers can focus their development and technology teams on creating innovative solutions instead of troubleshooting IT issues on a daily basis. Some cloud adoption projects are driven by a specific timeline, based on an event that significantly affects the customer's business operations. For example, an expiring lease on a data center might lead a customer to explore the benefits of migrating to the AWS cloud. Although the business driver for this scenario can be associated with cost, their cloud adoption project was driven by a specific timeline, since all resources had to be migrated to the cloud before the lease expiration. Knowing your customer's drivers to the cloud can help you work with them to determine a cloud adoption strategy and prioritize their applications for migration. Note that, although a customer's organization might have identified an overall business driver to migrate to the cloud, customers may still have specific motivations at a more granular level, like data center, business unit, application, team, and workload. What are customers most concerned about regarding cloud adoption? Listed here are typical concerns from the Chief Entrepreneurial Officer, Chief Financial Officer, and Chief Technology Officer. The concerns differ based on the needs of each stakeholder. A CEO is typically concerned with market expansion and shareholder value, a CFO with tax and compliance, and capital utilization issues, and the CTO with the agility of his or her technologies to drive greater competitive advantages and innovation. It's important to understand these varied concerns by role, as each of these concerns is usually tied to specific business outcome. When you understand your customer's desired business outcome, it then becomes easier to discuss the AWS capabilities designed to address each concern. Once you have established this link, you must demonstrate how each capability can be used to produce success with the desired customer business outcome.
这边讲说是一个公司里面有主要的3个人物 CEO、CFO 还有 CTO， 他们每个人所关心的一个点都不一样。像 CEO 他比较关心的是一个市场的扩张股东的利益如何控制风险如何快速的革新。CFO 想的呢，可能就是说这个东西能不能能不能省钱更高效，性价比够不够高然后就是说那个交税啊这些什么东西能不能规避一些风险。然后 CTO 呢主要是说这个东西是不是能快捷敏捷，它对于其他的同样的一个服务来说，它有没有更好的优势，然后这个东西够不够革新，它的性能就是 CTO 所关心的。那么在这边来看的话，如果说 CTO 有，比方说 CEO 有这样那样的一些关心点，那我们怎么样去回答他呢？怎么样去抓住他的痛点呢？就是我们就需要用一些亚马逊云它的一些特点来说，我们就跟他说亚马逊我们是on demand 的，然后是它本身是一个弹性的，所以说它开始也不要所以说它是会随着你的这个你公司的增量，它也是会随之你可以 upskill 的。然后同时呢，这个整个 整个全球呢，它有16个地区，然后每个地区都有不同的 data center，这也保证了说你在进军到其他国家的时候，亚马逊同样能给你支持。再一个就是 compliance and regulations， 就是说那些法律上的东西，亚马逊其实都已经可以帮你搞定了。再就是数据分析啊，这些就是 CEO 嘛，他毕竟还是要关心市场上这些东西，你能够提供这样的数据分析给他，也是非常有价值的。那么再看看 CFO ，No caps tax，No， 就是说让我来看呢，就是没有一开始不用让你付很多钱，他对这公司来说现金流没有很大的负担。再就是亚马逊它本身呢，也就是一个on demand 的东西，同样的就是说它不会占用很多的现金流。再一个就是它有很多工具能帮助你去做一些结账账单，然后你要付税这都是它都有很多东西提供给你的，这些工具非常好用，如果对于财务人员来说是非常友好的。然后再说 CTO 呢，刚刚说是整个亚马逊它有非常强大的这个资源，就是各个地方都有它的服务器。再一个呢，它也是弹性的，你可以 scale up，然后不需要的时候也可以关掉。再就是说是通过这些分析这些客户的数据呢，你也可以得到非常有价值的信息。再就是你整个东西你 deploy 了，就是如果你要去开展一个新的业务，在亚马逊的服务器上是非常的可以非常快的开始开展的。
Presented here are additional examples of cloud adoption concerns from other C-level executives. A Chief Information Officer is primarily concerned with IT control and ROI on IT projects, whereas the Chief Legal Officer, Chief Compliance, and Chief Security Officer are concerned most with compliance, governance, regulatory, and legal issues. And the Chief Marketing Officer is concerned with driving campaigns that make a connection with a customer to drive sales and gather data. Again, as you understand each of these customers' desired business outcomes, it then becomes easier to discuss the AWS capabilities designed to address each concern and produce success with the desired customer business outcome. Once you understand your customer organization's general and specific concerns about moving to the cloud, it can be very helpful to provide a planning tool to systematically assess the levels of adoption readiness across the organization. The Cloud Adoption Framework, CAF, is a publicly available framework developed by AWS Professional Services that offers structure to help organizations develop an efficient and effective plan for their adoption journey to the cloud. It provides guidance and best practices on building a comprehensive approach to cloud computing across an organization throughout the IT lifecycle. It helps stakeholders in the organization understand how cloud adoption transforms the way they work and provide structure to identify and address gaps in skills and processes. CAF is organized into 6 perspectives: business, people, governance, platform, security, and operations. These perspectives are divided into 2 categories: business and technology. Through each perspective, you can partner with your customer to create a comprehensive work stream that captures dependencies and gaps in skills and processes. The results form an action plan to guide your customer's change management process as they journey to the cloud. CAF leverages AWS experiences and best practices in assisting organizations around the world with their cloud adoption journey. When using this framework, you should engage directly with your customer so that the action plan is a mutually developed and agreed upon document. This level of engagement will help drive thorough adoption throughout the organization. We've just looked at the components of the Cloud Adoption Framework. Now let's revisit the stages of cloud adoption to understand how the Cloud Adoption Framework, CAF, can influence cloud adoption. As previously seen in this course, the stages of adoption describe the path customers take to drive innovation and value through the cloud. However, customers often hit a stall or plateau during their migration activities. Customers may become complacent after moving a workload to the cloud, or they may have concerns about proceeding with a full migration. This is where a well-developed cloud adoption framework that is designed together with customers becomes vital in addressing immediate and long-term customer goals and overcome stall periods. Using the CAF to think holistically about cloud adoption can help organizations stay on the right path and build a pragmatic plan that helps them take bold yet manageable steps to fully move their operations to the cloud.
这边我们再回来看看它第一章的时候就讲过了这个图，这个图它这边主要重新提到呢，就是为了说，在客户从迁徙到云上的时候呢，这就是他们最难的这一步。然后可能是更难的，还有一个难的部分呢，就是说，当他开始使用了一部分的云服务了，他还在犹豫要不要把他所有的业务都搬上云去，这也是比较难的地方。然后刚刚上一个页就提到了 CAF 这个东西，这个 Cloud Adoption Framework 就是有它通过6个方面又各分为2组，一组是商业，一组是技术，从这6个方面来考量说，你如何帮助你的客户去完成这个上云的步骤，就是说你最终给他的东西应该是一个 checklist。这个 checklist 就是说，他完成了这上面所有的事项之后，他就可以顺利的上云了。
As your customers begin to consider moving to the cloud, it is important to help them understand that migration costs will be highest at the initial phases of engagement. At these initial phases, there is typically a large investment of financial and human resources to rehost, replatform, or refactor existing applications. You can prepare your customers for investment spikes by pointing out that there is a corresponding reduction in customer costs as the migration process continues, and a very significant reduction in customer costs as cost optimization begins in earnest and continues over time. Migration to the cloud involves a phase-driven strategy. AWS identifies 6 phases in total, as you see here on the slide. Since this course is an introductory course, we will review only the first 2 phases of the cloud migration strategy, the cloud assessment phase and the proof of concept phase. The first phase of cloud migration is the cloud assessment phase, where customers work with partners like you to determine the viability of migrating to the cloud, to assess costs, and examine the reusability of assets. In Phase 2, the proof of concept phase, a small data set is typically migrated to understand if a particular workload can be launched successfully on the cloud. The next few slides in this module will address this cloud assessment phase and the proof of concept phases of migration. For those interested in delving deeper into all phases of cloud migration, we suggest taking the migration course offered through Global Training on the APN portal. One of the most important elements of Phase 1 cloud assessment is the review of existing applications and the development of an application migration strategy in order to assess costs and dependencies. Whether your clients are startups, SMBs, or large enterprises, this assessment phase is critical. We recommend a 2-part strategy to address the assessment phase of migration. Existing cloud-native or built-in-the-cloud apps can be reviewed for applicability to port directly to an AWS environment. Cloud-native applications can also be purpose-built in-house or by a vendor specifically for migration. We have seen several customers, such as the New York Times, quickly leverage cloud architecture patterns to design cloud-native applications from the ground up. Existing applications require a migration plan that assesses each application for readiness to transition to AWS. When building this plan for customers, you will notice that many applications can be moved very easily, while others require a more methodical phased approach. We recommend the AWS Cloud Migration White Paper as a resource on how to create a step-by-step approach to cloud migration. When you help customers follow this blueprint and focus on creating a proof of concept, it's easier for them to experience the tremendous potential in the AWS cloud. A link is provided in our module resource. As you review customer applications for migration, it is helpful to be aware of these 6 predominant application migration patterns. This framework will help you work with your customer to plan for the costs and actions involved in each migration pattern. Let's take a brief look at each of these principles. Retain. The customer keeps the host and application in their source environment. There is minimal analysis, validation of scope, and application affinity. Examples include unresolved physical dependencies, mainframe AS400, and non-x86 Unix applications. Retire, decommission. Application and host are decommissioned on the source. There is also no migration to target. Some examples are Unix, clustered host for DR, and alternative HA hosts. Rehost, lift and shift. Like-for-like applications are migrated to AWS with minimal effort to make the applications work on AWS. Storage migration would also be needed. Replatform, lift and replace. The OS and/or databases are upgraded onto AWS. Storage migration is needed if this option is selected, and applications are reinstalled on the target. Some examples would include a migration from Windows 2003 to Windows 2012, or an Oracle 8 to Oracle 11 database platform upgrade. Refactor, rewriting and decoupling applications. The OS and/or databases are ported to AWS, which triggers application changes and middleware upgrades on AWS. Application architecture changes may also require upversioning or porting. Repurchase, lift and repurchase. The customer uses available SaaS offerings to replace on-premises applications. Examples include on-premises CRM to SaaS CRM, on-premises thin client to workspaces, and on-premises Exchange Server to workmail. As an APN partner, the majority of migration you will encounter will be rehost, lift and shift, and replatform, lift and replace migrations. These 2 types account for 70% of all migrations. For migration onto the cloud, it is important for you to identify the initial workloads that are best suited for your customer migration strategy. These workloads are typically not mission critical and can often be standalone or highly iterative in nature. Presented here are some of the more suitable initial workloads for cloud adoption. Cloud adoption. For migration, as you work with customers on their cloud adoption plans, you can benefit from many tools at each phase of the migration journey. Many APN systems integrators, managed service providers, and value-added reseller partners include AWS Marketplace and APN Partner Solutions as part of their cloud adoption toolkit. Presented here is an overview of some of the many partner solutions available at each stage of the cloud adoption process, as well as some of the AWS solutions available. You can available. You can find the AWS tools at https://aws.amazon.com and third-party solutions on the AWS Marketplace at https://aws. AWS offers 2 migration programs to assist our partners who work with customers to migrate them to AWS. The AWS Migration Acceleration Program, MAP, for partners billing over 500 instances, and the AWS Partner Migration Program, PMP, for partners under this threshold. The AWS Partner Migration Program, PMP, is available for partners with customers that are ready to migrate at least 10 applications or 100 AWS instances, and that engage with an AWS Migration Competency Partner for the migration. For more information on this program or to see how you qualify, please speak to your PDR or PDM. The AWS Migration Acceleration Program, MAP, was created to assist advanced tier and premier tier partners with migration opportunities that include workloads that consist of 500-plus instances to be migrated and represent at least $1 million annual run rate after the migration is complete. For more information on this program or to see how to qualify, please speak with your PDM. As a reminder, APN partners can also obtain the AWS Migration Partner Competency to demonstrate their proven ability to help enterprise customers migrate applications and legacy infrastructure. Let's look at an example of a successful customer migration enabled on AWS by an APN consulting partner. Adobe Business Catalyst supported their existing customer base with 3 global data centers, which had over 120,000 active sites, tens of millions of email messages processed each month, and 100 terabytes of data served each month. When their data centers required a costly and time-consuming upgrade, Adobe Business Catalyst made a decision to move their on-premises operations to the cloud, setting an aggressive timeline for the migration. Due to the time constraints and overall complexity of the project, they engaged with SecondWatch, an APN Premier Consulting partner, to lead the cloud migration process and to help them select a cloud vendor. SecondWatch brought Adobe to AWS because of the ease of integration and cost-effectiveness. SecondWatch began the migration of Business Catalyst's 3 data centers to the AWS cloud by creating replicas of Adobe's physical data centers in each region, which allowed Adobe to seamlessly test each new cloud data center while their existing data centers continued to service customers. As each cloud data center was validated, SecondWatch migrated all user data and service endpoints to the AWS environment. Existing users of Adobe's platform enjoyed a near seamless experience during the migration, without experiencing any service degradation.
这边讲的就是之前他也提供了这个 SecondWatch， 他们是专门做 migration 的，然后呢，他就是帮这个 Adobe Business Catalyst 做这个上云服务，然后呢，他们就是整个上云他们怎么做的呢？就是他们首先呢是把所有的这些他们的应用他们的数据全部在亚马逊的多个区域的这个数据中心都做了一个备份，然后呢，他们先在上面跑通了测试都 OK 之后呢，然后再完全无缝的接过来。
Logicworks, a premier AWS consulting partner, has successfully transformed from a traditional managed service provider into a software-enabled MSP and supports a large number of clients on AWS. Click the button to watch the Logicworks leader.
For us, we were just listening to our customers, and there was an ongoing desire for them to say, hey, we love you guys as a managed service provider. We like trusting you with our IT operations, but we really want to run it on Amazon Web Services. Ken Ziegler, CEO of Logicworks. So Logicworks is a cloud automation and managed services provider. I'd say that 2/3 of our customers are in the Northeast, and then the remainder of them are throughout the world. Our sweet spot verticals are healthcare, financial services, media, e-commerce. Anything that has a compliance requirement like HIPAA or PCI are really great opportunities for us.
LogicWorks is really unique in the managed service provider space because we're an MSP that's really been in business for over 20 years. We have a deep DNA in providing services.
We've been able to basically transform a traditional managed service provider model and transform it into a software-enabled MSP.
LogicWorks' journey to AWS started back in April of 2012. A lot of our clients were really starting to say, we're really only interested in doing services on top of AWS.
As the platform had become more mature, we realized there was room for us to add value, particularly to enterprises who wanted to move to the cloud but didn't have a long history of having done so, it hadn't worked out all the nuances. If customers are interested in what AWS has to offer, we're certainly very interested in finding out and how we can add value to that for them.
The decision to become an APN partner was really just an evolution of what we felt was a technology decision on a platform that we wanted to support.
On day one, we had a lot more exposure to the right resources within Amazon Web Services. We were able to take advantage of some of the accreditation and training that the APN service provides. Based on feedback from our clients and what sort of features they were asking for, we could act as an amplifier on their behalf into Amazon Web Services. The fact that everything could be automated from the ground up was very, very critical to us, and we realized there was a lot of potential there in terms of ability to scale as a business and handle multiple clients and multiple workloads, and yet provide a consistent, conform and compliant environment for our clients.
It was really about differentiating our service offerings.
As a managed service provider focusing on the AWS platform, obviously we have to be AWS experts.
Our certifications actually go well beyond our engineering teams. Our CEO, members of our accounting team, people from all walks of our company really are certified to say we have over 50% of our company certified, really puts a stake in the ground and says to anybody that joins us, to anybody that we speak to, that we're serious about what we're doing. When we have a client who has a really important initiative coming up, we pull together with our partner network as well as our TAMs to find ways to lessen any type of risk that might be seen.
You want to leverage AWS's innovation, their balance sheet, all the things that Amazon Web Services brings to bear for your own benefit as a partner. We've seen over 100% growth the past couple of years on the AWS platform. Becoming an APN partner was, one of the best decisions that we ever made.
You have reached the end of Module 5. In it, we discuss the business drivers for cloud adoption and the importance of working with your customer on developing an action plan based on the cloud adoption framework. Cloud migration strategies, including assessing workloads for their viability to move to the cloud, and the 6 R's of application migration. And finally, we discussed how APN partners can assist customers with their cloud migration by utilizing AWS and partner-developed tools and by developing a migration competency of your own. Before you continue, please complete the knowledge check.
What are typical customer stages of cloud adoption? 开始一定是 project， 然后是 optimize。 你看啊，这边的话，我肯定是自己先做了一个project， 就是说可能里面有个员工对这个 AWS 很感兴趣，他自己做个小 project， 然后呢就做 foundation， 就是做一个基础，再一个他就是我投入精力在这个上面来做一些开发，做一些测试，然后呢就最后呢就是优化，然后继续。不对哈。这个顺序还是没错的。先 project foundation migration。Which workloads are well suited for a first phase migration cloud adoption? Which workloads are well suited for a first phase. Mission critical 这肯定不对啊，不能用关键的任务，这也不对。比如说 develop web backup。
Welcome to Roleplay number 2. In the previous roleplay video, an APM partner named Partner Consulting Group started a customer engagement with Apollo Gas Network. Apollo Gas Network is considering shifting their IT resources to the cloud as a response to regulatory, cost, and market pressures. Mark Taylor has made progress with his discussion with Steve Law from AGN. In their first conversation, Mark was able to articulate the value of moving AGN's operations to cloud, AGN appropriately, to win the first workload.
And your hesitance as well. You're in a very precarious situation, as you say, where you've had the deregulation of the industry from the EMA, and you don't want your customers to be disrupted or impacted by any changes that you implement. Similarly, you want to ensure that you're driving that customer engagement and keeping them involved, and you don't want to have any of that disruption that comes into play with a major upgrade to IT infrastructure or anything like that.
That's right. Minimising risk and leveraging our investments is important to me. So what did you and Steve actually talk about?
Steve and I talked about a number of things. The first one was how critical UPipe is going to be to your business, about how that's going to really help to drive some insights into what your customers are doing, how they're using the network with AGN. And then we talked about how the deregulation of the industry is impacting that. So our conversation was really around what's happening with your customers and how best to keep them engaged. And he also mentioned that he wanted to stop focusing on keeping the lights on and really concentrate on building that engagement that you guys are trying to drive with your customers.
That's great. Did he mention to you that we need to reduce our spending whilst also leveraging our current investments? I'm not going to spend any more.
Look, that's a sentiment that we hear from a lot of the customers that we talk to. And what we want to do is make sure that you're continually optimizing your costs and your resources that you have available to you today. And in fact...
Great. So we're on the same page. So is there anything else we need to cover?
Look, undoubtedly, you've planned your business meticulously. You know exactly what your customers are doing and you know what those trends are looking like. But what we can't account for is instances like we had with the incidents, that despite the best planning that we put in, there are some things that we just can't control. What we would like to discuss with you is about building a hybrid IT approach, where you have your existing resources and your infrastructure, but then you're also able to build in that resiliency and fault tolerance so that if you had incidents like what's occurred in the past 12 months, or if you had more people joining AGN, then you're able to account for that growth organically. So we never want you to be overutilized on your resources so that you've got customer dissatisfaction. And we never want you to be underutilized either, in that you've paid for resources, but you're unable to leverage them. So by building that hybrid approach, we really want to build in that predictability of the cost and the predictability of the resources that you have available to you.
That sounds great, but if I can't predict demand, how can I predict my costs? How does this work?
How would you explain cost predict and resource optimization? 如果这边是我说的话，上次我们就提到这个了 ，cost.
Yeah, that's a great question, Marcus, because what we want to do is we want you to be able to forecast to a level of accuracy that accounts for your organic growth as well. So there are two perspectives. That's the first one, about being able to account for organic growth. But the second perspective is looking at it from, how do I leverage my existing resources? Now, if we know that our existing resources are costing us a certain amount, then we've got that predictability there, but how do we optimize those resources so that we're able to reduce the cost and the maintenance around those?
Okay, that's great. So how do I track and control spend when there's variable demand?
AWS has some great resources around that. By using tools such as AWS's simple monthly calculator, we can put in all of the inputs of what we expect our usage to be. Say, for example, we decided to host an application like UPipe on the AWS platform. We could put in all of the inputs based on what we think the customer demand is going to be like, and that would show us what the monthly cost would be. And this is where PCG comes in as well, that we would help you build that scenario. We'd do the modeling based on the inputs that you think would be accurate, and then we could show you a holistic picture of what that would look like to run and to maintain over the course of a month, and building that predictability in from that side.
So just so I understand this right, there are no minimum terms or lock-in contracts?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. The way that AWS works, it's a pay-as-you-go model where you only pay for what you're using. There's no minimum level. If you provision some resources and you find that you're not using them, you simply turn them off. But that's one of the important things as well. We need to actually turn these things off. We don't want these to operate in the background and not be aware of them. And that's how PCG will come into place as well. We can help you manage your environment. So to answer your question simply, there's no lock-in contracts and there's no costs. If we looked at something like UPipe and we were to host that and we found that what we had provisioned for wasn't enough, we simply pay for more resources as we need them. Once we stop using them, we simply turn them off and have the level that we need at any given point in time.
That's great. I can see how that can help me with my operating costs and how I can leverage those savings for future investment. How do I know I'm getting the best pricing from AWS?
我觉得这边还是就是说是它那几个付款方式嘛，reserve 啦，dedicated 啦，或者是 bidding 啦，这边来说主要。
That's a great question. We could look at a number of different solutions that AWS has in terms of their different pricing models. The standard pricing model is a pay-as-you-go model where you pay for all of your utilization of your resources by the hour. For example, if we were talking about compute resources. So think of those as virtual machines or your little part of the cloud. You pay for that by the hour. If we were to run UPipe and we saw over a period of, say, X number of months, that our demand was very stable, that we were never going above or below a certain level, we could pay for that level in advance through what AWS calls reserved instances. The reserved instances allow us to pay for the resources for either a year or for 3 years. And there are different ways of paying for that as well, either all up front or partially up front, and that would help reduce the cost. By knowing that we have that predictability in the demand, we're able to reduce our costs by leveraging resources like what AWS has in reserved instances. And I know that as your role as Group CFO, you'd certainly be trying to minimize your risk as well as minimize your cost. If we find that we need to go above the reserved instances, we simply add on the pay-as-you-go pricing as well. And we know that we have that predictability. We're already getting the benefit of using the reserved instances.
Now, back to the second point that you raised, how can I leverage my current investment with AWS?
That's a great question as well. What we want to do is look at what the specific requirements are, and we'd like to work with Steve's team to do that. We know that Steve and his team have invested and highly tuned the applications that you're running, and we wouldn't want to disrupt your current infrastructure. What we'd like to do is augment that. So if we looked at something like UPipe, what I proposed to Steve was that we host UPipe on the cloud and run it as a proof of concept. So we don't go live onto the cloud, but we set some success criteria and some measurables with Steve and with yourself to say, this is what we think success is going to look like. And this is what a successful rollout of UPipe would look like on the AWS platform. What we can do then is look at what sort of resources we're using, and we can scale up and down. But most importantly, we can do that without any risk or without any disruption to your customers. So when someone logs on to the UPipe platform, they never experience outages. So we can build in that fault tolerance and that resiliency to make sure that the end user experience is never affected.
Okay, that sounds really promising and really good for our customers. What does a proof of concept actually look like, and what sort of investment needs to be made?
So we would work with Steve and his team to define the scope of what this would look like. So we'd look at what sort of time and investment that we'd need. But as an AWS APN advanced tier partner, we actually get access to some funding to help you with this proof of concept. So depending on what the variables are, we can work through what that cost is going to be with you. But what we'd first need is access to Steve and his team to understand what the scope of this project would look like. And he said that we must speak to you, and you're going to be critical in making sure that this is going to be something that's going to add value to the AGN business.
Okay, so why can't Steve and his team do this themselves?
哇，这个问题真的很艰难。为什么我自己的 IT 部门不能直接就上云呢？非要你来干这个事儿？这也是我一直挺困惑的。我们看看他这个人是怎么回答的。
So we understand that the migration process or the journey to the cloud can be a fairly complicated, a complicated path. We built our business around the AWS platform, and what we really need is to leverage the expertise that Steve and his team have on using your current infrastructure. So building that hybrid approach, we need his expertise on the applications that you're running and the sort of infrastructure you're running it on, and then building that into the AWS platform. So we do a combined approach and have a true partnership with Steve and his team.
Okay, so do we really need Steve then?
Yeah, absolutely. The expertise that Steve has is something that we need to leverage. He knows your business inside and out. He's the one who keeps, as he calls it, the lights on, and we're going to help him drive the innovation that you seek for your customers and to really help AGN grow. So this joint partnership that we've got, that will really help make AGN more competitive in this deregulated industry.
That poses a big risk. I don't think I'm ready to move that quickly.
Look, I completely understand, and I think this is why we should look at this through a phased approach. The first phase is to see the viability of what UPipe is going to look like. We would never say that we should do something that you're uncomfortable with. So let's assess the viability of UPipe in the cloud. Let's define the scope of what it's going to look like, see what success is going to look like as well, and work with Steve to make sure that we're able to implement that in the AWS cloud. One thing that we really pride ourselves on is that we've heavily invested in growing our business on AWS. So we've got the migration and the security, and we're working towards a big data competency, which means our staff are really skilled in doing these sorts of phased approaches with organizations like yourselves. And so that would be the first phase, that we look at that, look at hosting on the AWS cloud, and then we'd set some next steps after that. And of course, these next steps we'd work in conjunction with you. We're very confident that we'll be able to prove the value of running UPipe on the AWS cloud. And then based on that, we can look at how we can progress forward to build a broader cloud partnership and a cloud journey for AGN.
Okay, I'm open to this, and I'm quite happy for you to work with Steve on it. I'd like to be kept up to date as far as the proof of concept goes. I'd like to make sure that we maintain control over our costs and any form of expenditure, and I look forward to seeing what the results of this proof of concept actually deliver.
Okay, sounds great.
Wonderful.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
OK， 我们这边来回顾一下啊，这个人呢，他主要是说是这个戴眼镜的哥们，也就是上次之前的 CTO 啊，这个变成 CFO 了，他就问这印度哥们，为什么我自己的 IT 部门就不能自己个儿自主上云？然后他就回答说，就是说我首先呢，就是你给他一堆堆的证书，我们是 AWS 认可的资质，说我们在这上面有非常多的经验，我们全部的精力都是干这个 AWS 上面的事情了。那你的 team 呢？那他日常工作干不干了，对不对？他的你维护啊、开发呀、测试啊，你平常的业务，那你得继续吧，对不对？那我们的工作呢，就是说，他们对你本身的业务也非常具有了解，对不对？那我们的工作就是把他在你的所有的上面经验呢，跟我们在 AWS 的上面经验结合。结合之后呢，最终目的就是让你顺利成功的上云，而且从中受益。依我理解就是说这些。好，今天的学习就到此了。我们明天继续。